Good evening, and a very warm welcome from Harrow and Leicester to our regular Friday evening talk. This evening's talk is a fresh approach to life, a life in balance, and our speaker is Christine Mahoney, often known as Chrissy. Now, if you fancied some virtual time travel, then Chrissy is going to do it for us this evening. While we're sitting here on a Friday evening, Chrissy is at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. She's already in tomorrow. She comes from Melbourne, Australia, and has been a student and teacher with the Brahma Kumaris for over 35 years. Her profession is as in acting and theatre and film and TV, and I'm sure she'll tell us more about that when she joins us in just a moment. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat and keep them brief, and we'll endeavour to ask them to Chrissy at the end of the talk. So thank you. Chrissy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Everyone's out there. Hello from Australia. Morning time in Australia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, and it looks beautifully bright already this morning. So, and we're already in darkness, so it's extra special. Nice to see you. So, thank you so much for joining us. As I said briefly, you're from Melbourne in Australia, or that's where you are now. But tell us a little bit more about yourself. What sort of work have you done with in the theatre and film and television?
Well, it's been all our lives are a variety, and all our lives hold a unique story. So I'm sure there's some wonderful stories out there of your own lives. For my life, because I've got the spotlight here at the moment, I decided at a very young age that I wanted to go into the theatre, and so I ended up studying at the National Institute of Dramatic Art here in Sydney, which is called NIDA, a bit like RADA, I suppose. And I did my 3 years there, and then did an apprenticeship with an English director who'd been on Coronation Street forever, and at the State Theatre Company of South Australia. So I learnt my craft there in classical theatre. For 3.5 years, I was contracted to the company, which is rare these days. You just don't get that amount of time with one acting job. So I spent many years working for the State Theatre Company, Sydney Theatre Company, at the Opera House, and Melbourne Theatre Company, and in these beautiful venues, these wonderful theatres. And one of the highlights, I think, too, was understudying Hayley Mills in The King and I, and we went on tour together for quite a few months. Became very close, and she's a very special, very beautiful human being, and so that was a wonderful highlight. Beautiful to be in a musical with a massive orchestra, and it really it's like being in the essence of the life force, a live orchestra. And I've done some, I worked in TV for a while. It wasn't really my medium. I like to feel the connection to an audience. It's quite a beautiful thing. I co-created a theatre company in Sydney called Theatre of Image, which is still going. I worked there for about 16 years, and it was very innovative theatre, having come from classical theatre. So I did some film, and I think film was probably more my forte. I loved film. It's very more intimate than TV, which is more, for me it was. For some, it depends your medium's, a bit like being a painter. Any kind of, in life we choose, whether you're an engineer or you're a mathematician or a gardener, we all have our own, the things that we are drawn to that suit our own sort of temperament, I suppose. And people have always been my area of interest in this world. And as an actor, I felt I was a servant of humanity in that way, that I could portray the spirit of the characters I was playing. And and people could get to understand themselves and each other a little more. So it wasn't just about, oh, I want to be an actress. It was about my whole quest into understanding human behavior and human spirits. It's been a great privilege to be able to do it all these years, although I've gone more into peace building and conflict resolution and mediation now, conflict transformation, really. So it's a big love of mine. There's wonderful work being done in peace building using theatre and the arts, generally music and visual arts in peace building. So there's a lot you can do with a little in your life once we start to expand possibilities around our own identity, which I suppose what is a bit about what tonight's about.
Mm.
You know?
I think that's beautiful to be able. It's a different form of communication, but still communicating with people, which is so important. And as you say, tonight's topic is about a fresh approach to life. Do we approach life, or does life rush up and change us and steer us in the right direction?
Yeah, it's a good question, because at times it does, and usually unexpectedly. And usually at the times when we think we've got the most control over life, we think, oh, I know what I'm doing, and we've settled into what is, even if we haven't really embraced what is when it first happened. We finally settle into it to a certain degree, which is another subject for discussion in itself. Is that a good thing, or is it just that we there's something called the boiling frog syndrome? I don't know if you know of it, but they say if a frog is sort of in cold water, it swims around, and if you gradually turn up the heat, it sort of gradually goes to sleep in the heat, in the warmth of the water, until you boil it, and then it's just kind of cooked. And so what it means is that we can get used to the state that we're in. We can sort of settle in, and we can feel a dullness and an immobility around our circumstances and the life we're in. But it seems that we become a bit immobilized and lacking in motivation to change it. And so it becomes the norm. It becomes what I know, until something happens, like what came rushing at us out of nowhere, like this fast train, was this COVID situation. Which is been in one way, it's been like a kind of a train, that just came at us with the full lights on, which you were saying, Carolyn, about comes rushing at us. And we didn't embrace it. We didn't see it coming because we weren't looking for that. I'm sure the scientists and some of the researchers saw it coming based on the Spanish flu or evidence from history. But for us, walking the path of our own lives, we never really anticipated a global pandemic. But it's I don't know what you really call it on a big scale, because in many ways it's woken us up, with a big shock. A lot of us are in shock, but it's woken us up, a bit like being fast asleep, and then suddenly all the lights go on and all the music's turned up, and so what's happening? So it's also an opportunity, and the only way I can keep myself interested and keep myself motivated and keep myself just keep moving in this world in the way it is now, in the limitations that have been imposed on us, is to stay curious, is to stay and to invite curiosity and exploration and experimentation into my life. It's really, really important. It's what life is all about. Really, a life, that's what motivates children to grow up, is to keep exploring and investigating and experimenting. To their, a bit dangerous sometimes, because you can walk into unknown territory, but it's really, really important to find that the child in us, I suppose, is, because it's always there. It just, the grown up, the adult in us makes us, got to be more sensible, or we have to be more in control. and the situation in the world has taken us out of control. We feel that we have not been able to console. It can really bring up a lot of emotions.
So really, are you saying that the COVID has, in some respects, been a wake-up call? So we've got very stuck in our expectations of being adults. And it's taken us back to relearning and re-looking at everything we know and feel and see. And is this given us this, this as the topic, a fresh approach? We need to look at things differently because we don't know how things will be tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's what we're being called to. I can only speak to you from my own perspective and my own how I address my own life, and that's all I'm here to really. I really just sharing with you how I address, and if there's anything useful in how I go about dealing with change or the unexpected, then that'd be wonderful. If there's something that wakes something up in you, because usually when we gravitate towards a point of view or a type of person or an approach, or then it's usually something that is in us that we relate to. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be here tonight. You'd be down at the pub or, watching TV or something, but you're here. So you obviously have a spirit of inquiry, which is a beautiful quality in anyone, especially at this point in history. To have a spirit of inquiry means there's still life. There's a new exploration happening of, well, this is the way it is, and what can I do about it, and how can I refresh my life and renew my life, and the way it's always been has changed. So I definitely think it's been a wake-up call, and a rude shock to us all. And I think we are all in shock. In some cases, it's trauma. But I do think what's a conversation that is not being had enough in ourselves, in our private circles, in the government, in us as a global community. And it's happening, I'm sure, in small sections, but not generally, is the whole notion of creativity and being innovative. And we're naturally creative beings, and we see it so much in children. Well, we used to before they were dictated to by iPads and the internet and television. But before all of that, and I'm old enough and from a generation where we were still walking around the streets on tins with strings, like as if we were on stilts. We'd thread string through two tin cans, and we thought it was great fun. Or you have one person over there and one person over here with two tin cans and a string, and you could hear it. We explored. We became cowboys and Indians, or we turned mud into beautiful cakes, and we explored wonderful worlds of imagination and possibilities. And then came the internet revolution, and technology came in and told us to sit down and be spoken, and we would be fed. And perhaps it started with TV, but the development of TV, and then your big providers, your platforms that provided any film, anything you wanted to watch at any time of the day or night. And as we became busier, we wanted also immediacy, whether it was immediate food, immediate entertainment. Everything was on hand immediately, and we could ring up, it'd be delivered. We could switch on the internet and it's there. And should that all be taken away, then we're going to really see a wild typhoon storm in the human spirit, should the internet be taken away from us one day. So at the moment, even though this chaos hit our lives with the COVID chaos, we still had the internet to connect to each other. And so we still had that opportunity, whereas during the First, Second World Wars, they never had that. They waited for letters to arrive. And so I think going back to this notion of creativity, I think, Carolyn, and to all of you, I think we all really need to explore our creativity and our innovative selves that's been dormant for quite some time. And I think, you know, having during my professional life, I've taught a lot of acting to children and to adults. And you find that children are so alive in their imagination, and adults get more inhibited and more embarrassed or more fearful that they might look stupid or they might make a mistake, do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, and their identity could be compromised if they do. So their creativity takes more effort and more time and care to awaken than it does in a child. And we're being called to be very innovative and creative in our lives, as in finding newness, finding and opportunities to imagine. This is what way it is, but what if? And I also have known, because I studied creativity for a long time, I was very interested in it, and I worked in large corporations for some time doing workshops on creativity and innovation, problem solving and all that kind of focus. Creativity was often used as a focus for problem solving, and we've got big problems at the moment in our lives. Well, they seem like big problems, but they're also big opportunities to ignite our creativity and our innovative selves. Because if we don't, when creative energy is blocked, when it's suffocated, when it's suppressed, then it's expressed as anger or violence or depression. So when we start to see behavior of any of those expressions of anger, violence, or creativity or depression, then it's usually a sign that the creativity has been shut down, has been suppressed. That's what we talk about, freedom. All these, we have protests here. I'm sure you probably have them there. I think they're global on our freedom. Give us our freedom. We should be free to express ourselves as we want. But we're waiting for permission. And I know there's this whole movement, you know, to be given permission to be free. Sorry, sweetheart, what were you going to say?
I think a lot of this very much tied up with expectations of being adult. Again, that you mentioned earlier, where and social media has made it much harder to be free, to be me, because there's so many more role models. I should be like this. I ought to be like that. I ought not to behave this way. I should do that. And when we allow that just to take over, then all of those childlike, the creativity, the determination, the expression, and to pick up and put down and move on, and it gets lost, doesn't it? And it's such a shame. And I think sometimes, somehow, that COVID and so many of the lockdowns, and I know you've had terrible lockdowns too, that because they took me away from everybody else, it almost gave me more permission to be creative. I wasn't out there in the public world, in the public face. I could just be me.
That's it.
And so being locked down gave a freedom, which is...
Well, it did, if you like if you like being me, if you like being with me. If you're a bit, if me is a stranger, I haven't got a clue who I am. I'm always looking for diversions or distractions from being with myself. I'm busy, and I've got this. And I might complain about being so busy and having such a full diary, and I've got to rush here and I've got to rush there. But it is a distraction from living my unique, like being with my unique self in my unique life. And if I'm not busy rushing here and there, then I'll spend time on the internet, scouring Facebook or Instagram and looking at images Pinterest or anything that perhaps storing up, putting all these in folders, all these images that, I have got at one stage during the lockdown, I can't tell you how big a file I must have created on different forms of exercise. I've never looked at them, but I kept thinking, I'll put that one aside that's abdominals. So I'll work on the abdominals I'll be that fit when this is all over. And so I started hoarding away like a little squirrel all these nuts on how to get rid of a double chin or how to get rid of flabby arms. I was greatly distracted by all these possibilities, instead of just sitting and having a conversation with myself and go, wow, well, here we are. There's just you and me, especially if you live alone, or there's me and that one. And that one is just not the one I thought that one was, or I'm here with the kids, or who am I in this locked in environment? So we were able to escape a lot through our eyes during that time. People sat a lot looking outside of themselves into the world and searching for the creativity in others, either through film or music or something that others create, rather than looking at going, wow, here I am with myself, which was and is and will continue to be a great opportunity to explore. Who am I? What do I enjoy? What needs a bit of rebalancing here? What do I need to reignite my life and bring back some of the old-fashioned stuff of pottering around and the joy or the simple things of life? How, even cooking. A lot of people got into cooking during lockdowns. They started creating new recipes and exchanging those, or having dinner parties online. So everybody would bring their food and their glass of wine or whatever they do to do that, or afternoon teas. Let's all set up our afternoon. These are wonderful creative. It's creative thinking. And we gravitated towards other people's creative thinking as well, to be inspired by, so that we could wake up and reignite. So yeah, I think it's a fabulous opportunity, but we have to first of all start looking inward. That's what we're being called for. Who am I, and how do I express myself in this new world? How do I want to? How can I experience my fear, but get out there or to explore inside myself new possibilities, even in the state of being fearful that what if I make a mistake, or what if I I look stupid. And in my profession, I've had a lot of that experience, that sort of fear of improvisation. When I was mentioning when I worked with theatre of image, I used to work, I was the only permanent really actor in the company. Everyone else was always invited in for different productions. And there was one opportunity where the company kind of got attractive to people who had made a name for themselves in the profession. They wanted to branch out and be a bit more creative, because it was a very innovative theatre company. And I remember being in rehearsals once. We always started exploring the text and the concept through improvisation. And I'm in this rehearsal room with people I've admired, a couple of actors that I have admired and who I hold in great esteem as being, my peers, and, the people I really look to for who are famous, really. What I'm trying to say is they were famous. And I thought, I was thinking, I hope the director, who I know very well, doesn't say, could I start the improvisation? And I was praying inside myself, please don't ask me. Please don't ask me to start. And then he turned to me and he said, so Chrissy, would you be able to start the improvisation? And it was kind of, the improvisation was starting with animals, being an animal, which is often not uncommon in in creative theatre, is that you choose an animal because they usually can represent a type of human. And I thought, oh no. And I just died inside. I kind of collapsed with shyness and ego, and I'm going to look stupid. They're going to think, oh no, this is. But anyway, what I did was I thought, well, I can't get out of this, so I have to completely abandon myself to it. So I just let go and abandoned myself to the moment and threw myself in completely. Just forgot. In some ways, I put them on. I turned the volume down on them, and I just focused on what I had to do in hand. I had to have the courage to step out and just create in my own little tiny childlike world. And it was fabulous. It turned out to be magical. And they were inspired because in themselves, they're sitting there thinking, well, I've got a reputation to uphold here. I can't be looking stupid. I can't just, get down on the floor and become an animal. I've got a reputation. I'm at the top of my profession here. So they're thinking their own little kind of wobbly, fearful, embarrassed, or shy thoughts, as we all do, because we're all human, and sometimes we think it's only me feeling like this, but we all feel that. So it's just to throw yourself in. And then it's never as bad once you do. Once you just go, oh, I'm just going to go. I'll just give it a go. I'll try this. I'll try something new. And it usually is one of the most memorable, informative, life-giving experiences. So
I think it's really good that you're highlighting that the people we least expect to just feel as much fear as we do.
Totally. Maybe more. They've got more to lose in some ways.
Yes. And so rather than letting fear hold us back, we can just say, okay, so I'm scared of this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it anyway. Let me just step forward. And it does open up possibilities. It opens up me, because part of this becoming an adult for me is closing down and down and down. So I'm not don't have half the potential that I've got inside because of the fears and the expectations of others.
Sometimes closing down is important, and it does happen because we sort of feel we need to protect ourselves. If I've been bullied at school or at work, or I haven't been encouraged to think or present myself with creative ideas. I mean, I remember having a director once who was he was head of it's both in film, TV. It happened to me. It often happened in stage with big directors that had big reputations. And I was playing a lead role, and because I'm a team member, and I love collaboration. I think there's so much power in collaboration and community. I love the whole concept of community, of working together as unique individuals and each bringing their own unique gift. It's just power. It's wonderful, rather than being clones. And so I remember saying, in these occasions, saying, you know what we could do? You know what I was just thinking? Maybe if, and offering something creative. And this person who had so much sort of power and control turned to me and said, I'm not interested in what you think. You just shut up and do what I tell you. And all the other actors were looking at me. Nobody stood up for me. And I just went, oh, it was terrible. And it happened on the odd occasion when the director would just say, I didn't ask you for your opinion. I'm not interested. I've got this. And, so because as it turned out, in years to come, I understood that it was that their lack of confidence or their insecurity that couldn't allow my voice to come in. So it took me a lot of courage to actually find myself in the space where others want to have power and control. And but to still have the self-respect and the self-connection, a connection to myself, to be able to stand in my own light. And I remember this particular director who was international. The one that said to me, I'm not interested in what you think, you just shut up and do what I tell you. And I had this responsibility of this lead role. And I was the one that was going to be left on stage on opening night, or when the performances rolled out. He'd be gone, he'd be home, he'd be off doing a new venture. And so I had a sense of responsibility to my part and the character that I was representing. And so I remember waiting for him one day at the end, at lunchtime, as he was packing up his things and the rehearsal room was empty. And I remember waiting for him like a school child at the back of the room, feeling totally powerless. But my sense of responsibility was stronger than my fear. And I came up to him as he was walking out the door, and I said, "Excuse me, can I just speak to you for a moment?" And he said, I'm off having lunch. I'm having my lunch now. And I said, "It won't take long." I said, "I just need to say something to you." "What is it?" He said. I said, I just want to say, you don't have to like me. That's okay. If you don't like me, that's fine. I said, "But you have to trust me." I said, "Because I do know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and you'll have to trust that I know." And he kind of got through him a bit. Took me so much courage, having spent a lot of time in the toilets at lunchtime crying because of his bullying. And so I had to stand up for myself. And then after that, he kind of eased off. But on opening night, I had such a success on opening night. He came to my dressing room and he said, "I want to apologize. I really want to apologize for not trusting you enough during rehearsals. And you've really come up with the goods." And but it didn't really mean a lot to me, his praise, because what meant the most to me was a life-changing experience where I stood up for myself and presented myself in a new way, in a way that I had never done before. Bullies always, from childhood, I always became diminished in the face of someone that seemed more powerful and controlling than me. But it was life-changing for me, that moment. And I had nothing to lose, really. So I think fear can be our friend in that way. Fear is the hand on your back that pushes you forward. It just kind of makes you go, "Oh, no, don't stop it, leave me alone." But well, you're in there. And fear, ironically, is the greatest enemy to spontaneity. Because there's this wonderful model called the Canon of Creativity that was developed by a psychiatrist called Moreno, Moreno. And he talks about the canon of creativity. So the canon of creativity is the final piece that we create. And we start off with an idea or an inspiration or, wow, I could perhaps. So we go on our little journey towards this creation. And then fear blocks the spontaneity, the idea, the moment, the inspiration. Fear gets in the way like this wall. And if we don't ever confront that fear or be curious about, well, how can I deal with this in a different way? We toddle back to what is to safe territory, to what I've known. So I toddle back there and I go back to sleep and go, well, I'll just wrap myself up in the blanket again and turn the lights down and no one will know I'm here. But when you do go through that barrier and you do find that creativity, that the spontaneity is more powerful than the fear, the creative call, the creative urge is far more powerful than the fear, then your life takes on a whole new palette of possibilities. And like a light comes on, like the spirit comes alive again. And when the spirit comes alive again, then a whole lot of newness, possibilities, joy, and it becomes like a ripple effect to our family and friends, this new energy that starts to be ignited in the self. It has a ripple effect to our family, friends, and eventually out into the world. The world that we think we could never change, the world that we think is just too far gone or too out of my realm, so I get angry about it, frustrated, or just plain depressed and shut down because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to change it, so I won't. So when I get this new joyous kind of life force that starts inside me, all sorts of things start to change. And when that happens in a collective case, then you really start to see change in the world and the way we are and what is happening to us.
I very much liked it when you said about needing to give your very best to bring the role alive. You know, that you were playing, and we play roles in our lives. Our lives are roles within roles, and it's those roles we have a responsibility to ourselves so that we can just keep bringing ourselves alive. When you said about the light was what I was getting before you said it, that it is that light within me to express the very best that I can be. I have that responsibility to myself to step forward and push against those barriers, because
absolutely
they're there to help me grow, to help me see things about myself that I had lost.
And they've definitely come to invite you to that a consciousness of inquiry, to sort of sit with yourself. But you know, I think the greatest loneliness is the separation from self, the greatest loss. I mean, and we really felt a lot of loneliness or aloneness when we were cut off from others during this time and couldn't go down to the shops or couldn't go to the cafe where I normally see my little community, or I couldn't meet up with my friends every Friday night, which I love to do. So I was, that separation from self, and you're left alone in a room, in a house, in a home, in a life with the self. Then it's time for exploration and because in that world, when you reach inside into that inner world, it's unlimited. There are no boundaries. You know, I think people are protesting against what the government is doing to them. My greatest anarchy, my greatest protest against the conformity or the limitations that are being imposed on me is to not let anyone into the sanctuary of my mind or into my sacred space. I will not. If that is the place that I do have some say in, I do have control over. And in that place, I'm free and I'm unlimited. In a bodily state, there are so many limitations in a bodily state. And in my inner world, in my soul world, in my sanctuary, internal sanctuary, if there are limitations, then I can impose those. And that's my choice. I can make it as small internally as I want or as great as I want, but I will not let others dictate to me my inner world. I've worked really hard on that all my life to set that part of me free, and I will continue to do it till I take my last breath in this particular life that I'm living. I won't let anybody steal that away from me, because physically we have so much stolen from us. You know, how I look, what my body size, shape, age is, what my culture is, what my nationality is, how I look, what language I speak. We've got so much imposed on us that supposedly give us an identity. And it's all fake, it's all illusion, it's all other people imposing. And I'm too much of a freedom fighter. I'm a freedom fighter for the inner freedom.
Yeah, and sometimes I see that people protest against what is, and sometimes protests are really important to highlight things that are not going right. But we have so much more power when we focus on the positive, and we use that positive in our life to take us forward in a different way. Okay, so that route's blocked. What's this route offering? Let me try this. What's it coming to teach me? What light within me is it trying to turn on?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You find a new way, like water, like a river. There's a big log in the river. It usually finds a way around it. It banks up to a certain point and then it flows over it. And so it does. That's the beauty of nature. Nature finds its way. And if a wall is growing in front of a tree, it bends itself to go over the wall. And it's just nature does that. We can learn so much from the natural world that we have lost by being so indoors and small inside. So, but there has to be that spirit of inquiry to go on this journey, linking arms with me as my best friend, with me as my confidant. I mean, that's why, I had a strong professional life, but I always saw my work in the arts as an expression of the human being, of the human spirit. I've always had that interest. It was not about fame for me. It was not about, money or all those other sort of wonderful attractions that end up illusions, and you can easily be replaced. But so I've always had a spirit of inquiry around the human spirit. And I think what it's teaching me as I'm getting older, and the liberation that comes with age, is that I can check in with myself. What's good for me? Is this good for me? Is this, I'm more, I suppose, what do you call it? I discerning about where I spend my time, what I watch on TV or what I don't watch, who I spend time with, where I choose to go. And maybe these lockdowns have made us all a bit more discerning about where we put our time and energy, and with whom, and who do I allow to influence and affect my happiness or my life or my possibilities. Because we get a little bit worn down by negativity, reading, listening to, having conversations of negativity. You just walk away exhausted, rather than reignited. So, there really has to be that interest, really. And I understand this isn't, we can talk about this in half an hour, 40 minutes, but this is a life journey where we make choices. And to walk this path with myself, and to really honor that part of me that needs time with myself, walking in nature, sitting quietly, listening to maybe some music with a cup of tea with myself, meditation, prayer, conversation with good people. It's just it's experiencing myself in those moments that will hold me in good stead in the future. No matter what happens around me, I have my inner sanctuary that I can always return to. It's really, really important.
And I very much like that idea that we have let go of some things and some people during the pandemic, during the shutdowns. And it feels very important that we don't just go back into our old way of being. And I think perhaps that's why it's lasted so long, to almost shake us out of going back into what was, that was not beneficial. So it's now time to begin to say, okay, I've had this quiet time. Things have been challenging. I've learned things about myself on the way. So where do I want to go from here? And I suppose
you don't want to toss all of that you don't want to toss all that out, do you?
No, absolutely
not. What a waste.
Yes.
We're going to come out of this with nothing then, will we?
Yeah.
It's just all been a waste of time and all just painful and difficult. I remember during the lockdown thinking, this is going to finish one day. This will be over. The world will move on. And I don't want to have lost the chance to have learned what this has come to teach me. It's come to teach us things on the collective, on the global, on the bigger scale, but it's also come to teach me something on as an individual to find something new. And so I don't want that opportunity to pass, as opportunities do pass, and come out of it with nothing but you know, being resentful and angry and depressed or sad. And all those things are so valid. I'm not saying they're not, and that they won't, they do come to us, but we do also have to find a way to embrace the sadness, embrace the anger, embrace the frustration, go, okay, well, what's this teaching me? You know, what can I do about this, rather than being done to? Become the motivator, become the one that initiates, rather than being done to, which is the victim mode, you know, which you know is so easy. It's so easy, but there's not the gratification at the end of a life, and what you don't leave the legacy for children around you to see someone that can, you know, for a long time I have been an inspirational auntie that nobody really wanted to know about, because I was a bit different, you know, and I wouldn't have conversations of nasty, you know, negativity. I just, only because I got so bored. And but now, as my nieces and nephews are getting older and having a greater experience of life, we can now, I'm here to have conversations that they're having trouble having with anyone else. But I had to maintain that self-respect, that I didn't, you know, I shouldn't be trying to dress like them or be like them in order to have a connection with them, but to say time will come when I've done the work on myself, I've tilled the field, I've planted the seeds, and they will grow. So I am, but it just takes that faith in the self, that, you know, and that's where we have the physical world and the sort of the more sort of spiritual internal world, and to nurture that is going to make my physical world much more rich and much more alive. And it's like oxygen, to find that oxygen. But yeah, it was interesting when you were saying, Carolyn, about, you know, things, we want things to be the way they were. You know, have you ever gone back to a place where you spent holidays as a kid, or you go back to a country you really loved, having not been there for years, and you expect it all to be the same?
Yes, and it's
you
not.
Go, oh my goodness, it's changed so much. And then it's like rather than going, oh, well, it's really different, I'll explore this new place, we kind of want it to be the way it was.
I must admit, I've never been good at going back. I always want to go somewhere different.
Oh, that's a great quality.
Because then your memories are, the good memories that you're holding are still there, and you just create new ones. And it just is, as you say, it's such an opportunity at this moment in time to say, okay, where am I going now? What do I want to do? And as you say, with your nieces and nephews, I have grandchildren growing up, and I'm different to their other grandparents. And they know that. We have a different relationship.
Yeah.
But it's very easy because I've learned more about me.
Yes.
And as each year goes by, I learn more about me, and I become more real. And not only family, but other people want to be around you more, because when somebody's genuine, they're easier to be around.
Yes.
You know what to expect. You know where that you'll get the truth from them. And it's easier that way, isn't it?
Well, I think so. And I think it's much, you know, you're not just wasting in emotions and trying so hard to be someone that you think would be a funky grandmother, and you know, or a friend, or you know, that you follow a trend, because trends change, and then when the trend changes, then who am I? You know, I met a lady in a waiting room the other day, and she was in her, I think maybe she was 90. And honestly, she was the most fabulous icon for the 1960s. She still had the beehive hairdo, and the glasses and the earrings and the whole dress from the 1960s, because she was still, and it was fabulous. I mean, she just stood out like something that had walked out of the those the wax museums. But she was fabulous because she just was living her where she was at her best. And she was just wonderful. But you just couldn't help sort of sitting there looking at her. And wanting to, we got talking together because I had to be, so curious about humanity. I had to know why she was like she was and dressed like she was and had this kind of still swinging 60s attitude about her. Honestly, she could have got up and done the jive or she could have got up and done the twist and the hand jives and everything. She was just so alive because she was still in herself. Even though people might look at her in the street or they might go, what's that old bird dressed like that for? She was unique and in herself. And I thought this is fabulous. And I love that. I love those very few who still carry the flame of life into older years. I heard the other day about a lady that went back to school in her 60s, her late 60s, and she finished her schooling in her late 60s, went off to university, and at 94 got a PhD in sociology.
Fabulous.
Oh, wouldn't I love to be like that? Now imagine how she's inspiring the depressed 60-year-olds that just go, well, life's over, that's it. I'm redundant. What's going to happen? To actually just go, what's always interested me? What have I never had time to do? Well, there's such a vast ocean of possibilities out there that it's almost daunting. That you just don't know where to start. The internet is loaded with information, workshops, talks, courses. You just don't know where to start, so you don't. Or you start and you get lost.
Yeah. Or start the old-fashioned way with perhaps a book even.
That's it. Or a conversation with yourself. Going, well, what actually is my specialty? What's calling me? What's really calling me? Not calling her or calling him. What's calling me?
What makes me feel alive? What makes me feel alive and vibrant? Yes.
That's it. Exactly. What's unique to me. And then you do your research around that and find, gosh, what could I do? I mean, I went and got a master's degree in mediation and conflict resolution, having never been academic in my whole life. I couldn't do my homework by just even getting through a book. It took me, took concentration. And anyway, I was so interested to understand why we hurt each other. And I just thought, no, I've got to understand this. So I thought I'll just do a certificate because that was and so as a mature age student, first of all, I converted my acting diploma into a bachelor's by writing a paper called The Actor as Social Healer. And I wrote about something that interested me and not about what I thought might be, get me a bachelor's. So I started doing baby steps, just small little baby steps. And then my world started to open up. And I started to listen to conversations in the classroom with international peacemakers that were coming to teach us. Oh, it was so exciting. I often didn't have a clue what they were talking about, but I just loved the vibration, the atmosphere of inquiry. And that I knew if I hung in there, I could do good for the world. I could expand my world and my understanding of why people that I always thought loved and were close to me hurt me. I could understand it more because I was investigating it rather than living in my pain and my victimization or my anger or whatever. I stepped out to go, okay, I'm going to inquire here. I'm going to try and learn and teach myself, educate myself why I'm like I am, why I've hurt people and why I've been hurt. Because I really do feel we're being called to be in an age of healing. Healing we hear about all the time. it is a time of healing. We're no longer hurting anyone or being hurt or hurting myself. It's a time for renewal. It's definitely, we are being called for renewal. And there's that wonderful term that I've heard before called, what is time calling me to do? What am I being called? Like a call from the distance. If I go quiet and listen, tune in, I will hear what my unique call is.
Chrissy, I could talk to you all evening, and I'm sure everybody could listen for hours more, but we're running out of time.
Yes.
We do hope you'll come back and join us again another day and continue or expand on these conversations. I found it absolutely fascinating and illuminating and uplifting, and I hope others have too. So
I didn't get to see if there were any questions, and I apologize.
Well, there weren't any.
Oh, well, even if you've got any, if you'd had any thoughts that you thought you didn't agree with or that were challenging to you, if we didn't get the chance to discuss that here, you're your greatest teacher. You're your greatest resource. So have a conversation with yourself about it.
So it's been absolutely fabulous. Could you lead us in a short meditation, please, to finish off this fabulous evening?
Thank you so much for having me and spending your Friday evening with me. And I just have nothing but good wishes and blessings for you all, for the life you have, and the choices you make, and we will spend the next few minutes honoring that sacred experience called life, the gift that we're given, who I am, sitting here in this moment, separate and yet together, a community of hearts with the same questions, the same inquiries, and a beautiful capacity for each one of us to be an ocean. I start off this life as a very small little pond, a little pool of water that reflects the world around me. A pool of water that is a possibility to become so much more, to keep filling myself with experiences, inquiries, where sometimes I doubt, but this life force within me becomes stronger than any doubts or fears. And my small pond becomes this beautiful lake as my life grows and experiences relationships, possibilities grow. I become a beautiful lake that has greater depth than the little pool of water I began this life as. I sail across this lake that is sometimes choppy and rough as the wind blows, the wind of change blows the surface of my own unique lake. But like a little boat on the lake, I steady the sails and sail gently Others drink from the waters of my lake, filled with my experiences of life. Sometimes the little boat on my lake becomes still, becalmed. The winds have dropped out, and there's just silence all around me. I let go of frustration. I let go of the need to be more, do more. I can sit quietly in this moment, knowing that things will change. And once more, my little boat will sail across the lake. And I notice as time goes by, my lake has got greater depth, a greater expansion. It's becoming an ocean of water. I've become an ocean that is so beautiful. It's so deep. It's full of treasures and wonderful life force. Others stand at the shore of my ocean in wonderment, wanting to dive in and swim with me. I sail my little boat across this ocean of life like a child with the sails in my hand, guiding this little boat into the unknown, into the rising sun, filled with newness and possibilities. I am the master of my boat. I am in control. But I am also the child that draws the map of possibilities, of exploration, of wonderment. I am free. I am free to sail wherever I want, explore whatever I want to explore. For the child in me is free, knowing I am in the safe haven of my own inner heart that guides me, gives me courage to be free.
Thank you, Christy. That was beautiful. Thank you for your time on this Saturday morning for you and for sharing this evening with us. And we do hope you'll come and join us again very shortly, because it was lovely. I'm sure we have lots more to explore.
I'd love to have a conversation with all of us and see what's happening in your life now as you sail your little boat into the ocean of possibilities.
Well, yes. Well, perhaps if you come over to the UK, we'd love to have you in person.
Yes.
And if not, we'll be online again.
Okay, let's make that a deal.
Okay,
I've I've got a British passport, so anything's possible.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But lots of thanks have been coming in on the chat. So thank you again. And
blessings to you all.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us this evening. Next week's talk is the courage to be disliked and succeeding as you are. And Amisha's joining us, and I think this topic will follow on very nicely from tonight's talk. So thank you all, and have a good week, a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.